السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونتوكل عليه. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. ربنا زدنا علما. اللهم فقهنا في الدين. آمين يا رب العالمين. I welcome you all for lesson 5 of Tajweed. And before we begin our lesson, there's a little message that inshallah I would like to share with you all about Ahlullah wa Khasatuhu. We learned that there is family of Allah, people of Allah, and His chosen ones. And let's see who are those. We learned from a hadith that Anas bin Malik radiallahu anh said, Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that indeed for Allah are Ahleen, family members, His people. Qila man hum ya Rasulullah. He was asked, "Oh Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who are those?" He said, "They are the people of Quran are the people of Allah, and they are His chosen ones." So those who love Quran and recite Quran, they are actually people of Allah. And Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala said that indeed the people of Quran are actually people of Allah and His chosen ones. And he explains how it is that because they have special inayah on them, they're gifted with some certain things. And what is that? What's that gift? They make special arrangements for the recitation of Quran and to reflect on it and recite it in a pleasant, beautiful tone, and they act according to it. So if we do all these things, we can also become people of Quran, and by becoming people of Quran, we can become khas of Allah, special chosen ones of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among them. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Let's inshallah go ahead and start the new topic, sifatul huruf, characteristics of the letters. Alhamdulillah, we have previously done makharij of huruf. We have covered makharij of each letter, and we have practiced them as well. We have an image to refer to if we forget. So every time I recommend that having that image and referring back to it. Let's go ahead and top that knowledge with sifaat of the letters. Just like makharij is important, similarly, understanding the letter, each letter, sifaat are equally important for that. What is the purpose of learning the characteristics? It helps us make the letter clear. Then we learn the timing of the letters who have sukun on them. So sakin letter have different timing. Mutharrik letter all have same timing, but the sakin letter have different timing. And sifaat help us in differentiating which letter should have more time than the other. Then it helps us make our recitation clear, understandable, and good, because the building block of our recitation is strong now, and we know how to pronounce each letter clearly. That's what helps us make a recitation better and clear. We can differentiate two letters that come from the same makhraj with the help of sifaat. For example, ta and ta, they both come from the same makhraj, but if we make ta heavy, then it will be different from ta. So knowing specific characteristics help us differentiate one letter from another, and this is also a benefit of learning sifaat. It gives us confidence. As I mentioned earlier, we know the building block. We are confident because we know how and why we are pronouncing a certain letter. So this grants confidence in recitation of a great deal. And when you learn characteristics, your recitation will be much better than an average reciter. Even if you have learned recitation from a learned teacher in the young age, but you have never studied the Tajweed's rules and theory, then your knowledge is definitely, you're a level below. So if a teacher who has been teaching from quite long and listens to your recitation, they can tell the difference, if you have studied and you have been implementing the Tajweed rules or not. So characteristics makes difference between a good reciter and an average reciter. So what is a characteristic? Just like human beings, we have unique personalities. Some are introverts, some are extrovert, some are calm, some are quick and fast-paced people. So each Arabic alphabet letter also has its unique personality. And this is what we are going to inshallah learn in sifaat. When it comes to dividing the sifaat into groups, there are first two main categories, and there are sifatul asliya and sifatul aradiyya. Sifatul asliya are the sifaat that are permanent. They are always there. The original sifaat of letters, you can never separate them from the letters. Whereas sifatul aradiyya, they are temporary sifat. They come in play sometimes in certain situations to the letter, but other times they're not there. So first of all, we will be studying sifatul asliya. Sifatul asliya is also divided into two categories. And today we will be doing one category in this lesson. Sifatul asliya has sifatul mutadada and sifatul ghayr mutadada. Yani sifat with opposite. So these are the original sifat that are always there with the letter, never disappear. And they have two categories, ones with opposites and the other ones without opposite. So one thing we need to know about the ones with opposite is that there are 5 categories of them. And when we place the Arabic alphabet, we have to place them all in that certain category, either in one place or another. Whereas غير متضادة, the ones without opposite, are unique with certain letters and they don't belong to each one of them, So there are certain letters who have specifically these sifat and other letters don't have it. And we don't have to place all the letters, into a certain category. We just have to remember that, this sifa is specific to this certain letter. So sifat and mutadada, I said there are 5 categories. The first category is of the letters that have hams and jahar. What is hams and jahar? Hams is the letters that are whisperable. These are pronounced with the running of breath. So the flow of the breath supports pronunciation of these letters. Whereas jahar is opposite of that. These are apparent letters. There is imprisonment of the flowing of the breath. The flow of the breath does not support pronouncing these letters. There are other things that come in play, but the flow of breath is not there. What are these letters? Fa, ha, tha, ha, shin, ha, sod, sin, kaf, and ta. These letters are whisperable letters. You can try whispering them. You can say sh. But if you try to whisper jim or dal, you will not be able to whisper them. They come from the makhraj strongly. They do not use the flow of the breath. So running of the breath happens only in these letters, and you can whisper them. You can, when you're pronouncing them, you can bring your palm in front of your mouth and you can feel, when you say these letters, you will feel the breath flowing from your mouth. Whereas for jahar letter, you won't do that. You won't be able to do that. And very strongly, you can whisper these and you cannot whisper the jahar letters. So when you pronounce sheen, there is flow of breath. So if you remember, we have talked about a breathing practice in the very beginning, that you need to strengthen up your breath, holding of the breath for a long time, and being able to strongly recite in the loud voice. So here's where you will get the benefit of your breathing practice. These letters will be stronger if your breath is stronger, and listener will be able to hear your letters very clearly. So the second set of sifat with opposites are shidda, at-tawassut, and ikhwa. So that's the second category. So the first category we did is jahar and hams. And we place all the letters in them. So all of Arabic alphabet letters either fall in hams, some of them, and then other will fall in jahar. Whatever is left off from these letters that I mentioned, then they will fall under jahar, like jim or qaf. They are pronounced with the imprisonment of the flowing breath, and they are not supported by the running breath. Similarly, here in this sifa, it's the running sound of these letters that is either short in timing or longer in timing, depending on which category the huruf belong to. Either they are shidda letters. Shidda letters are the strong letters. Their makhraj is strong, so there is imprisonment of the running sound. The vocal cords are involved, so vocal cords close, and the sound suddenly closes for these letters. So another supporting sifa comes in order for the letter to be heard clearly. So hamza, if it has, especially when these letters have sukun on them, these letters need another sifa to support them, otherwise their sound will disappear. So we have to be very careful when these letters show up with a sukun on them, or they're in the end of the ayah, or we are stopping on these letters. So they are the last letter of a word we are stopping on. we have to be very careful with them, because if you say ad and you don't bounce it, then the sound will stop, because it is a letter of shidda. It doesn't have a longer running sound, especially when it has sukun. As I mentioned earlier, that all the mutaharrik letters have the same sound, but all the sakin letter has different running sound, and that's because of this sifa. With certain letters, they belong to shidda, so they have short sound of ta, ba, jim, dal. These are qalqala letters. They have another supporting sifa to make their sound heard, so we bounce them. Similarly, hamza as well, there needs to be a jerk on a sakin hamza, because if you say mu'minun, mu'minun, then only your hamza is heard. Otherwise, it will sound like as if you're saying a wow, mu'minun. So you have to make sure that whenever there is hamza sakina, you have to make that strong sound so that people can hear your hamza, or you can hear your hamza yourself too. For kaf and ta, these two letters are of hams letters, so when we stop on them, they should not bounce. Ak, so you hear that partial hams sound there for kaf and ta, and at and ak, especially when they have sukun on them, because they belong to this set of sifat. At tawassut letters are where there is partial imprisonment of the running sound and the partial flow. When we look at the makharij of these letters, lam, the tongue, that front edge of the tongue comes and blocks the whole path. The sound is running from the sides, so the letter gets some running sound, but part of the makharij is blocked. Al, an, noon and meme, their makhraj is completely closed, and nose is the makhraj where the sound flows through, and we hear that running sound from there for noon and meme. For ayn and ra, the makhraj is partially closed for ayn as well. When we use the middle of the throat and we press it behind where our tongue attaches, that's where the sound runs through, and we pronounce ayn. We have to make sure that we are not letting the sound strike the roof of the mouth, because ayn is a light letter, and we'll talk about it in the heavy letters as well when we're bringing ayn in, because sometimes your ayn might sound as if it's a heavy, you're making it heavy, and there's a reason for it. Ra as well. If you remember, I mentioned that there's a line in the middle of our tongue, and when we pronounce ra, the sound flows through it. So we don't press completely our tongue on the makhraj. We leave some part there in the middle where the sound runs from, and that's where we hear this vibration of ra as well. So these are the letters. All the other letters that are not mentioned here will fall in the letters of rekhwa. These are called soft letters because there is a flow of sound. There is no imprisonment of the sound for any reason. That's why they will have longer timing as compared to other letters. For example, sheen, ash. For example, seen, as. Because there is no stopping of the sound there, it's naturally happening. So these are the letters of rekhwa. And this, if you create this sifa, if you bring that sifa into these letters, which is naturally supposed to be there, then your letters will have proper sound and your recitation will improve, inshallah. Let's go over to the next set of sifat that have to do with the heaviness of the letters or lightness of the letters. And these are two of them, isti'la or istifal. So the letters called isti'la are the heavy letters, they are called the letters of elevation. They are kha, sad, dad, ghain, ta, qaf, and la. How do we make the sound of these letters heavy? Is that when we are pronouncing these letters, we are creating compression of the sound between our tongue and the roof of the mouth. And it's not happening throughout the whole roof of the mouth, it's only towards the front part. So when we say for some of them, and some of them are belonging to another category where the compression of the sound goes through the whole mouth. So for example, kha, akh, akh. So if you notice, you're pushing the sound towards the roof of the mouth, and the sound goes heavy. Akh. And if you don't do that, if you let that sound and breath flow from your mouth, then you will hear kha as light. Kha, Kha is heavy, so you push the sound towards the roof of the mouth by raising your tongue, not by rounding your lips. Because if you round your lips to try to make it sound heavy, which is the incorrect way, you will have a vowel sound in it, because the makhraj of vaw is rounding the lips, right? So kha, and in this technique, you might be able to make your kha heavy with the dhamma, but when you're making it heavy with the fatha, your fatha sound will be compromised too if you're using your lips. So kha, not kho. Kha by pushing the sound towards the roof of the mouth, not by rounding the lips. Similarly, sa, do. So sa is not sa, because sin is a light letter, and sad is a heavy letter. We're doing the same thing. We're creating that compression of sound towards the roof of the mouth. And that this is the same case for all of the letters. And whatever is not mentioned here goes to this category, al-istifal, the light letters, absence of the pressure towards the roof of the mouth. And how does that happen? That when we are flowing the sound for these letters, an ayn falls here too. As I mentioned earlier, that when we are we're trying to pronounce ayn from the makhraj, the sound could strike the roof of the mouth instead of freely flowing through your mouth. And I noticed some people, they kind of put an effort and bend their lip from one side to say ah, or ha as well, as a matter of fact. Ah and ha, if you pull your lips little out, that is the way to not let the sound strike the roof of the mouth and not let this compression create, which is present in only the heavy letters that are kha, sad, dad, ghain, ta, qaf, and za. So these letters are heavy. Only these letters are heavy. What happens when you are not putting in efforts to make your light letters sound light? Sa and sheen, sha. What happens? All of your letters sound kind of in the middle. So your listener or you yourself will not be able to differentiate your heavy letters from your light letters, because all of them are on the same tone. You are not creating compression, and you're not trying to not create compression. You're not trying to eliminate the compression from your roof of your mouth for the letters that are letters of istifal. So you have to put in special effort and try to notice for each letter if you are doing that. So when you're practicing your makharij, actually, you're not going to think about your sifaat as well and how you're applying them on each letter. So as I mentioned earlier, the and the, when we were doing the makhraj, they and the law, they all come from the same makhraj, but the only difference is that for law, we are creating this compression, we are creating this isti'ala of the sound, we are raising the sound towards the roof of the mouth, and these letters, the and the, we are just letting it naturally flow through our mouth. The makhraj is same. The only difference is with the raising of the back of the tongue, we are able to achieve this creating of compression towards the roof of the mouth, which is only the front part for law. Similarly, qaf and kaf, their makharij are very close to each other. So there will be raising of the tongue for both, but for kaf, we are going to spread our lips and let the sound flow easily from the mouth. And for qaf, we have to push it through towards the roof of the mouth in order to make it sound heavy. Qa, qa, and ka. So there has to be a very visible difference in both of these letters. Otherwise, they will sound same because they're coming from the same makhraj, very close to each other. So they're both coming from the back of the tongue, back part of the tongue. But where the touch is a different soft palate and a hard palate. So you have to put in really good effort in order to apply this sifa on these letters so that your heavy letters are clear and prominent, and your light letters are also, letters of istifal are also clear and light. And spreading the lips helps the sound flow out clearly, easily. But the purpose is why the tongue. We are supposed to achieve it through the tongue. For heavy letters, we raise the back of the tongue, whereas for the light letters, we do not raise the tongue in a way that will create compression towards the roof of the mouth. And not by rounding the lips, because if we round the lips, they will add wow sound. So the fourth category of these sifats are ittibaq and infitah. And ittibaq is the adhesion. So we are adhering or closing the sound inside the mouth and creating that special compression of sound like we did for 7 letters earlier. But these letters are the heaviest. Sad, dad, ta, and la. They are the heaviest letters when we compare the heavy letters, 7 heavy letters with each other, because there is more compression of sound with sad, dad, ta, and la. So your ha will not be as heavy as your sa, because the compression of the mouth, the compression of the sound is throughout the roof of the mouth, and everything else will fall in infitah. Even ha will be a letter of infitah. Yes, it's a letter of istila, but it's a letter of infitah because there is not a complete compression there. There is partial compression. So for ha as well, it will be a letter of infitah, even though it's a heavy letter. So we create this compression between the tongue and the mouth to make it sound heavy, or we try to not let that happen for the infitah letters, and all other huruf will fall here except these 4. Let's look at the image a little. For law, so the compression is being created towards the whole roof of the mouth, law. And for qaf, it's only to the front, because qaf is also a letter of istila. It's a heavy letter, but it is not a letter of ittibaq, it's a letter of infitah. Kaf as well, there's completely no compression at all. So law is from a category where there is a complete compression. It's a letter of ittibaq. Qaf is a letter of istila, so there is partial compression. And then the kaf, there is no compression at all of the sound towards the roof of the mouth. So it's a light letter, kaf. Similarly, all letters we will pronounce like this, that belong to these categories. Last set of sifaat are islaq and ismat. So letter of islaq are quickly, easily pronounced. Pronouncing the letters does not require a lot of effort in the makhraj. So very quickly and easily these letters are pronounced: fa, ra, mim, nun, lam, and ba. Whereas the letters of ismat, they are pronounced slowly and firmly from the makhraj. So pronouncing these letters slowly and firmly from the makhraj will help us achieve this sifaat of ismat. And with that, alhamdulillah, we have finished our opposite sifaat with opposites. We will, inshallah, in the next lesson, we'll go over sifaat al-ghayr mutada'da. And after we finish that, we'll go over each letter and think about it, what sifa is applied on that letter and how it should sound. So while you are applying the sifaat, when you're practicing your makharij, your letter would become even more clear and beautiful, and you can benefit from, inshallah, making your recitation beautiful with the help of theory of Tajweed. Jazakallahu khairan kathira. With that, we'll inshallah end. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.